South Korea's fertility rate has dropped to a world low of 0.72. This means that on average, each woman is having less than one child in her lifetime, a figure so low it's almost unimaginable for a modern nation. The echoes of children's laughter are fading from city parks and schoolyards, replaced by a growing silence that speaks volumes about the country's future. Japan's is barely higher at 1.26, both far below the 2.1 needed for a stable population. Hospitals and maternity wards are quieter than ever, and the sight of large families has become a rarity in city streets. The implications of these numbers ripple through every aspect of society, from the economy to the very fabric of daily life. These aren't just numbers, they signal a society in crisis. Young couples worry about the future, while the elderly watch their neighborhoods grow emptier each year. The anxiety is palpable, as people wonder who will care for the aging population and how communities will survive. The decline is so rapid, it's unprecedented outside of war or famine. Streets that once bustled with life now empty out, and entire villages in rural Japan are left abandoned, their homes overtaken by weeds and silence. The pace of change is breathtaking and deeply unsettling. Unlike other developed nations, France, Sweden, even the US, East Asia's demographic collapse is uniquely severe. In Europe and North America, playgrounds and city centers still pulse with youthful energy, but in Japan and South Korea, the contrast is stark. The difference is not just in numbers, but in the very atmosphere of daily life. The consequences are immediate: shrinking workforces, economic stagnation, and mounting pressure on social services. Companies struggle to find new employees, and older workers are asked to stay on longer, delaying retirement. Small businesses close their doors, unable to find successors or enough customers to stay afloat. Schools close, rural towns empty, and the energy of youth fades. Once thriving communities are now shadows of their former selves, with shuttered schools and deserted shopping streets, serving as daily reminders of the demographic shift. This isn't a distant problem, it's happening now. Headlines warn of a looming crisis, and conversations in subways and cafes are filled with concern about what the future holds for the next generation. For decades, Japan and South Korea were economic miracles. Their cities grew skyward, their factories hummed with productivity, and their populations seemed unstoppable. The world looked to them as models of growth and innovation. Now, the very systems that built their success are unraveling. Factories stand silent, and once busy shopping districts are dotted with empty storefronts. The economic engine that powered these nations is sputtering. The world is watching, because what's happening in Tokyo and Seoul could soon be a preview for other nations. Demographers and policymakers everywhere are taking notes, wondering if their own countries might face similar challenges in the years ahead. The question isn't if a crisis is coming, it's how to manage a catastrophe already underway. Governments scramble to find solutions, from incentives for families to bold policy reforms, but the scale of the problem is daunting. The demographic time bomb is ticking, and its effects are impossible to ignore. Every day that passes brings new urgency, as the window for effective action narrows. The future of these societies hangs in the balance. Whether they can adapt and thrive, or continue down this path of decline, will shape not only their destinies, but perhaps the fate of aging societies everywhere. At the heart of this crisis lies a relentless pressure that shapes daily existence for millions. It's a punishing work culture, where the boundaries between professional and personal life have all but disappeared. In Japan and South Korea, the expectation to work long hours and attend after-work gatherings leaves little room for family, hobbies, or even rest. Death from overwork, known as karoshi in Japan and gwarosa in Korea, isn't just a phrase. It's a tragic reality that claims lives every year, a stark reminder of the human cost of this system. Young professionals are expected to sacrifice evenings, weekends, and even their health for the promise of career advancement, often at the expense of their own well-being. For those in non-regular or contract jobs, the situation is even more precarious. These positions offer little security or benefits, making long-term planning, like starting a family or buying a home, feel out of reach. Even those with stable jobs face unspoken rules. Total devotion is expected, and taking parental leave or time off is often seen as a risk to one's career. The grind culture is so deeply ingrained that stepping back, even briefly, can mean sacrificing economic stability and social acceptance. Many young people look at the sacrifices their parents made: years lost to work, family moments missed, and quietly vow not to repeat the same cycle. The result is a generation caught in limbo, feeling trapped between the demands of work and the seeming impossibility of building a fulfilling family life. In the end, the system leaves them with no real choice, just the quiet ache of what's been lost. The burden falls hardest on women, who face rigid expectations to be both perfect employees and primary caregivers. Career or motherhood, most are forced to choose. Companies penalize women for maternity leave, and men rarely share domestic duties. The mom penalty sidelines women, while men's participation in childcare remains among the lowest in the developed world. Younger women, more educated and ambitious, are rejecting this double standard. Until family responsibilities are truly shared, many women will simply opt out of motherhood. It's a rational response to an irrational system. The gender gap is a key barrier to reversing the birth rate decline. The cost of raising a child in Japan and South Korea is staggering. Sky-high housing prices in cities make family life unaffordable for many. Tiny apartments and crushing rents leave little space for children. Education costs are overwhelming, with private cram schools seen as essential. Parents feel pressured to invest heavily in a single child, making siblings a financial impossibility. Social expectations add to the burden. Opting out of expensive education is seen as neglect. Wage stagnation and job insecurity complete the picture. For many, the math simply doesn't work. It's not a lack of desire, but a realistic assessment of their future. The price of parenthood is just too high. Social expectations and isolation shape the decision to have children. Parenting is seen as a private burden, especially for mothers. Urbanization has eroded extended family support, leaving parents alone. Public spaces can be hostile to children. No-kids zones are common. The pressure to be a perfect parent is relentless, amplified by social media. State support is limited. Affordable daycare is scarce and hard to access. Many mothers are forced to quit work or pay for expensive private care. The lack of community and government support leaves parents feeling abandoned. For many, the stress and isolation outweigh the joys of parenthood. Some countries have managed to keep birth rates higher by supporting families in meaningful, practical ways. These nations recognize that raising children is not just a private matter, but a shared societal responsibility. When governments step in to help, families feel less alone and more confident about having children. France and Sweden, for example, offer affordable, high-quality childcare and generous, gender-equal parental leave. These benefits make it easier for parents to balance work and family life, reducing stress and financial pressure. Policies in these countries actively encourage men to take leave, making childcare a shared responsibility between both parents. This shift helps break down old stereotypes and creates a more equal society. In contrast, in Japan and South Korea, parental leave exists on paper, but deep-rooted cultural resistance keeps most men from using it. Social expectations still place the burden of childcare mostly on women. The lack of affordable, accessible childcare options locks many women into the caregiver role, making it difficult for them to return to work or pursue their own ambitions. In successful countries, supporting families is seen as a collective priority. Communities, local governments, and workplaces all play a part in making family life easier and more fulfilling. In much of East Asia, the family is still expected to adapt to the demands of the economy rather than the economy adapting to support families. This creates extra pressure on parents and children alike. Without a real shift in mindset and the creation of strong support systems, the crisis of declining birth rates will only deepen, affecting future generations. The difference between nations is not just about policy, it's about a societal choice to invest in families and the future. Japan and South Korea have spent billions on baby bonuses and generous subsidies, hoping to encourage more families. But financial incentives alone haven't worked. Birth rates keep falling year after year despite these efforts. The problem is deeper than money. It's about work culture, rigid gender roles, and powerful social expectations that shape daily life. Immigration could help ease the crisis, but both countries resisted, closing off a key solution for their future. Real change would mean transforming work-life balance, advancing gender equality, and expanding public support for families. These aren't minor tweaks. They challenge the very core of how society is organized and how people live. The solutions are clear, but the political will to act is still missing. Until that changes, the demographic crisis in both countries will only continue to grow.